the last 4 or 5 months, we're really starting to see traction. Excited to be here to share my story.
Yeah, we are honored to have you. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome everyone to our webinar today, How to Fix Your Patient Referrals. We know it's frustrating and there's a lot on the line, but don't worry, we have a blueprint to follow and a solution. So we're going to be discussing 7 steps to increase revenue and save time while closing the loop and building trust. My name is John Henson. I'm part of the marketing team here at Referral Point. I'll be moderating the session today. So a couple quick housekeeping items. One, this is being recorded, and we will share that recording shortly after the presentation. From your view, there's going to be a couple widgets. You can minimize questions throughout the presentation. Just type those in. We have time at the end to answer those questions. So I'd like to introduce our presenters. First, we have Robert Harris. Robert is the CEO. Also, as I said, we have Dr. Thomas McCarrick on with us. Dr. Thomas McCarrick is one of the founding physicians at Vanguard Medical Group, based out of New Jersey, where he serves as the Chief Medical and Informatics Officer. He's a family physician, has been practicing since 1985. We're honored to have him on to talk about his experiences. So that said, I'm going to pass the ball over to Robert, who's going to start our presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Dr. McCarrick, for joining us. So what are we going to cover today? Why has everybody joined this webinar to learn how to fix their referrals? So we're gonna walk through why are referrals broken, and then we're going to say, well, what's the impact of the referrals being broken? And we're going to have the opportunity to hear from Dr. McCarrick about his before story of where he was at before, and then the process that we went through with him and that we would go through with any of you on how to fix it. And then, Dr. McCarrick again will come back and share what his after story is. And then what's next? What do we do to get started in this process? So by providers for providers. So what does that mean? So in 2014, we began just talking to our clients and talking to our parent company's clients and finding out where the impact of referrals are starting to become apparent because of value-based care and even fee-for-service coming out. What is that impact? And so through that, it was such an impact that we created a patent-pending, visually based ideal match, which we're going to show you. And then in 2017, we hand-selected development partners to ensure that we could actually solve the real problems, not, let's just solve a couple things. Like, what are the real problems? Let's solve those. So we focused on that. And then in 2019, Gardner came out with a whole segment on just referral management in general. Lightbeam Health allows us to do that. And then in 2019, our development partners successfully started tracking data-driven referrals. And we're going to show you how we do that. And then in 2020, as Dr. McCarrick started with, our proven results that confirm the readiness to launch. Why are referrals broken? Well, let's go into this before story. Dr. McCarrick, on the left, you'll see some of the things that you said of where you were before. So I'll let you kind of jump in here and share, where were you before we engaged with each other?
Sure. Well, it's actually been a really long story. If you look, I've been in practice about 35 years. And in the very early on, 35 years ago, there was very little reason to try to control referrals. It was really driven by your relationships, the doctors that you practice with in the community, and having good relationships with them and good communication. And then as managed care came along, we had actually a shelf full of directories, and we had to find a specialist who was in a particular directory. Then that challenge actually subsided for a while with the reduction in the gatekeeper model. But now this has come back again with a different to make sure that we're managing referrals in a way that we are driving our patients or sending our patients to value-based partners, specialists who deliver good value in their care. But along the way, the whole process became fragmented, as Robert, you just described. We have 10 offices in New Jersey. Each office had their own method for determining referrals. Some folks just had cards at their desk, and if the specialist came in to visit the office and brought cards in, those cards would be there, and that would become a source of generating referrals. The medical assistants actually had a lot of input into which referrals were easiest to process. So we had no centralized control over this. It was not data driven. It was driven by individual providers, even within an office. Providers would have different choices on specialists. It was dual providers, even within an office. Providers would have different choices on specialists. It was driven by the office staff. And yet with managed care, we needed to actually have some kind of control, not to lock it down completely, but we needed to create some way of having a control and a discipline to how we were managing referrals. And that's where we got to a few years ago, where we said, okay, what are we going to do here? We're going to centralize referrals like some practices do and have all that come to an office and control it, which is not friendly to patients or providers at the point of care. Or can we find a technology solution that effectively gives us that same control, but in a distributed fashion across all our offices? But there's a central process and thinking and management behind it, and it's data driven. And that's how we ended up with Lightbeam.
Yeah, I think you may have mentioned this, but didn't you even try to develop the app yourself?
I wasn't going to mention that on the air, but yes, I did try to do that. Yeah, and we were able to do something very simple, but it became apparent that there's a lot of potential in doing this to really create something that pulls data from various sources. It's something you have to maintain. I mean, to really do this right is really a lot of work, and much more than I was able to do in my simple app. So that's where you come, Robert.
Right. Well, thank you. So, okay, what after our conversations and not just with you, but all of the development partners and the focus groups we had, it really came down to what is really broken. Like, what is the villain here? And we boiled it down to this: is that number one, it's subjective data versus objective data. Number two is manual processes. Number three is disconnected tools. Even software. We've had some clients that already had a referral management software, but it was disconnected. So they still had to have other manual processes, and they had subjective data filling it up. So you add all that together, it results in the villain. The problem is uninformed. Number one, referral selection. Number two, appointment scheduling. So that's broken because of uninformed. And number three, uninformed referral management. Okay, so no ability to close the loop. All right, so you take those three, and what does that impact? Well, it impacts the revenue and the productivity in each of these. So I'm going to break this down. The first one, so what is referral selection? Referrals going out of network or to high-cost, low-quality specialists. So what's the impact of that? Well, we have these articles here that are links. So each one of these is a link. And you'll see here, 43% of health systems are losing more than 10% of revenue to leakage. And the other one here is out-of-network referral is $5,000. Dr. McCarrick, I mean, we talked about this, $5,000 in lost downstream revenue. That's not just sending a referral to a specialist. It's who does he do business with as well, and what's the overall episode of sending it to that. And if you lose that referral, then you might be losing $5,000 or more in down. And again, here's some more articles that you can go and read for your. So patients have to wait longer, and what does that do for impacting the patient's lives and getting the health care that they need? But they're doing it because there's no visibility in how all the other providers' schedules are. They're having to wait, even though there's a 50% capacity within the network. So you go to the next one, an average cost per hospital stay or readmit, as you all know, is very expensive. And then 46% of all fax referrals never result in a scheduled appointment. That's a staggering number. And most clients, when we engage with them, they're still faxing referrals and having no way to close that loop. So speaking of close the loop, no way to know if patients showed or what the results were. And so what is the impact of that? And so look at that number, 65% of the time they don't know. And 20 to 40% of the time referrals don't show up. Let's see how that impacts you. We've broken it down so that we can see this piece by piece and then we'll have a calculator that you can use to fill this in, but just an overall PCPs on average about 1,000 referrals a year, some less, some more, but on average. So if there's a 40% leakage, what is the impact of that? Well, you take 1,000 times 40%, that's 400 referrals sending out of network per PCP, times that number, whether you choose 5,000, 10,000, 2,000, whatever it is. In your math, you would come up with so much you're losing per PCP. So like Dr. McCarrick, he's got 50 PCPs. We did the math, and it was very significant how much he was losing by not being able to control those referrals, who they were referring to. But the other part is not just leakage. We hear a lot about leakage, but the other part we miss is just referring to lower cost referrals. If we don't have the data, then we're missing out on being able to refer to a lower cost. So it means we're referring to higher costs. So let's say 10%. You take the same thing, those 1,000 referrals, times the $500 that you could be saving. That's another amount lost or missed revenue per PCP. So let's just, at the very beginning of doing a referral, that's just referral selection. And that's why you're going to hear us talk about referral selection is the most important part of this whole process of referral management, but there hasn't been a tool yet that's been able to solve that. Okay, well, until now, but let's look at the next step. Patients are usually given a list to go schedule themselves. When they wait 4 to 8 weeks, that impacts the patient. Or even if the staff is scheduling it, they still are trying to call and email to remind them to show up. And the optimal appointments on the specialist side, and if it's not, we're going to show you, if you did have access to the calendar of the specialist, that you can actually increase revenue by 10%. So because you don't know that, you're missing out on 10% of revenue. What's the impact of that? And then the specialist on this side, he's got the knife there, he's doing surgeries. So the specialist asks the PCP for the patient notes. Well, they don't get those most of the time. So how does that impact the patient? Or the PCP is chasing the specialist for an update. Hey, what happened on that patient? I don't know. Well, 65% never get closed on that closed loop. And so the PCP can continue to chase it and still get nothing back. That can result in unnecessary readmits. What's the impact of that? But overall, that's extra time involved because of manual processes and disconnected tools, and that has an impact as well. So you take all that, how do you fix it? Well, we walked through this journey with Dr. McCarrick. So I'm going to walk through the same thing that we did with him at Vanguard. On the before side, just like his, uninformed referrals and the things on the left. And then we want to get to informed referrals and control keepage and control costs and those things on the right. But how do you get there? Well, we want to make it very simple. Nothing complicated. It is so simple. So we have 3 simple steps. One is we complete a survey. It's a really simple survey. I'll show that to you. We then come in and we capture your vision, your overall vision, and then how referrals relate to help you achieve your OB. After we do that, we can come back with a completely customized blueprint to help you get you from where you are to really where you want to be. And the executives in your whole organization would be very proud that you were the one that brought that to them, and we'll show that to you. So first step, complete the referral impact survey. Really simple. Is we give you this link. We're going to give it to you at the end of this. You click on it, and there's a first section about your networks and leakage, only 4 or 5 questions. Here's 3 questions on high-cost providers, another 4 questions, and another 4 questions on time for a total of 16 questions. And then you get a little tiny preview, as you see here on the right. It's not the blueprint yet. It's just a preview. And you can see the math, how you can come up with these numbers. And with that comes the next step, is we have a call to capture your vision, and then we come back and validate your vision, the issues, and any priorities, and put them in order with you. And then we validate your wish list with what we already have and what else you want us to build, and you get to check those things off. Hey, here's the things that I want that you have, or here's some things that I don't want that I would like you to build. And so at this time, we are investing in our clients. We are investing in delivering a $3,000 customized blueprint so that you can share with your executives how much referrals impact your bottom line and a step-by-step action plan on how to fix it. And it comes with an ROI calculator. Now, I say investing because it does take us, but to customize, we say customize. We have to customize it based on your situation to ensure we close the loop. And it's not just in one care setting, it's in all three access points: patient scheduling, care setting, and referral desk. So we go through each step of the journey, of the entire patient journey, and figure out where we can automate, make things more streamlined. We're going to recap. We use 7 steps to fix these 3 areas. First area, referral selection. And so how does this referral selection, what does it include? It includes 3 of the first 7 steps. Okay, I'm going to say that again. There's 7 total steps, but the first 3 have to do with referral selection. The first one is intelligent data, which we're going to go more into. So the intelligent data, you see their third-party data, maybe your claims, and the HIEs, EHR data coming into our EDW. And then the next thing is we're going to show you how we can create scores out of that for providers so that we can do network building. So that goes in the next one is network builder. And then we can automate making sure the locations are accurate. And then the next phase is the ideal match, right here. So are they qualified? Are they in network, lowest cost, highest quality, patient preferences, and optimized calendars? And so now at the time of care, as you see here, is the ideal match. And we do all that setup. Your doctors don't do any of this. We work with you and your system admins to get all this set up. So at the time of care, all the doctor has to do is choose an ideal match and then put the ideal match right into the EHR. And if wanted to, they can go right to their normal process on using their EHR to do the rest. So let's walk through these. Intelligent data. So what is that? That's objective, not subjective. That's objective cost and quality data. So what's subjective? That's like the surveys that you get, the consumer surveys, or even your staff saying, hey, this is a good doctor or not a good doctor. That's still subjective. Well, you can still use part of that, but using objective data. This is literally the actual commercial claims to get an overall score. So here's an overall score for efficiency. We have to do the same thing for effectiveness, which would be quality scores. And we were able to create a score comparing their data against the other providers in their specialties or in their procedure, against the national mean, the national averages, the state averages, as well as the local averages, to come up with a formula to create an overall score so you can literally feel confident that we do have the lowest cost providers in our system. Now, in order to finish that, you take those scores and you put them into our matching criteria platform. So you see on the right, you see subjective data and you got cost. Well, this data fills in here overall efficiency, lower expenses compared to local, state, and national average. You can give a weight to the other cost data that you have or we have, and now you have an overall cost score, and you can give a weight to that cost compared to any subjective data you have. Same thing for outcomes. You see treatment time, the specialty effectiveness, or episode effectiveness, and you can give a weights to those. And then, are they qualified? Do we have access to them? Are they loyal to us? In their growth, do they have high volumes? And if we brought them on to build a network with them, we're going to increase this much in business. Well, you give a weight to each one of those, and that's how you come up with an overall ideal match score that you've now customized, including, as you see here, by episode. So now you have intelligent data, not just data, but intelligent data. So you need that intelligent data to build your networks. And this is what we've been working with Dr. McCarrick, right? Is building data, but intelligent data. So you need that intelligent data to build your network, is building his networks. And we've recently uploaded this cost data into Dr. McCarrick's platform. So that helps us build these networks like I'm showing here. Now, let's use some examples here. You have a network of commercial. So when a patient comes in, it's commercial. It's like, what's that network of providers for commercial? that you want to refer them to, or Medicare, or Medicaid, and then even broken down the difference between your networks of fee-for-service versus value-based care for each one of those. So in this example, in-network has 1,000 in here. Well, now that you have the intelligent data to identify what you say is your ideal match cost, your ideal match quality, and the overall provider score that you customized, now you're able to see which. I mean, anything you want to say on that, Dr. McCarrick?
Well, just that it has a huge amount of flexibility, obviously, and it can seem complex. I guess our experience was that we started in a very simplified way, because you can't just turn on the application and expect all the providers to be happy with the referrals being dictated pretty much by what the application is telling us. So what we did is we really weighed the existing relationships extremely heavily in the beginning, and then as we go along, we have start to have more and more confidence in the data. We start actually adjusting the proportions on the weighting. So
yeah, over here on the weighting, you're talking about you adjusted the weights as you went along. At first, your subjective data may have been like 80%, but as you got more confident in the cost and quality data, you lowered your subjective percentage and increased your cost and quality. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. You want to verify. Any of us who are dealing with lots of data know that the data is not always, can be a little dirty, and you have to develop trust in it. But you don't want to be disruptive when you use this. So we took a very simple approach at first, and we said, we're just going to start with our existing relationships, and we're going to keep tweaking it. And then as you show the doctors at the various offices how you're thinking about this, they start to develop more confidence that the application is really guiding them correctly.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so as you build out your different networks, just want to be able to show in that example, or a Medicare network. So now that the networks are built, and we've done that and worked with your system admin or your executives to do that part, now it's when we put it into the hands of the providers, is you have a button where inside your EHR, and when you click on that button at the time whenever you would normally choose who's the provider I need to refer to in your normal workflow, is it can come up on single sign-on. Now, at first, if you don't have single sign-on, you can just have two screens. Dr. McCarrick has been doing that, and his team been doing that very easily. But the next phase of this is where you have the single sign-on, it pops up ideal match, and within 5 seconds, it pulls up the ideal match for them, and all they have to do is click a button like that for Carla Lee, and that's using all that data in the background to use the algorithms to say, hey, this is the lowest cost, highest quality provider that's in network that we would like to refer to. Now, at this time, if by chance the provider said this MPI or this doctor, you could still override that. But as they get more confidence, Dr. McCarrick said, they start realizing, hey, this would actually be better, and they get more confidence in using the ideal match. And any thoughts on that, Dr. McCarrick?
No, I think that's exactly right. I think it's you have to go easy, and you just go slow, and then the application will demonstrate value. It's just you have to get it in front of people. They have to get comfortable with it.
Okay. Yeah. So at that point, once you just click that box and you click schedule by patient or schedule by staff, at that point, then you just put, if you want to just use your EHR to process the referral like you normally do, you can just put that name where you would normally put that name and go about your business doing your referral the way you normally do. But at least now it's the lowest cost, highest quality provider. And that could take you 10 seconds and then you're right back into your normal process. Instead of having to go use a spreadsheet or just go off who they know, because that's what's happened a lot of times, Dr. McCarrick, because they were just looking at a spreadsheet or a sheet of paper and saying, who do I refer to? And it's on the sheet. And there's no way for you to know to track that. So here's another example. This is a HIE. So I just want to point out, if any of you are part of an HIE, there's another button, ideal match, and then it pops up right there. There's the chance. So that's referral selection. The next step within these 7 steps We got to fix appointment scheduling. How do we do that? Well, this is something that we are very excited about, meaning everybody wants to schedule in real time. They just don't know how. So there's a company that we have brought in and partnered with, and it is they came from the airline industry. So in an airline, to fill the seats up with the highest value, customers, they have algorithms to predict, well, which seats would we need to fill in first and last. And be able to completely increase in the airline industry their revenues based on their algorithms and the predictor. They did the same thing with scheduling, and they moved this into this product that we have called Book MD Now. And so it's not just a looking book like some of the competitors, it's actually increasing the revenue. So it's ensuring appointments are getting scheduled with the right providers or right partners, reduces empty slots, decreases need for patients' empty slots, decreases need for patients going elsewhere, and increases utilization. And it integrates right with your current PM system, so your patient engagement remains the same. Here's how it works. That same process, ideal match pops up, and you see the button there, Dr. McCarrick. You got schedule by patient, you got schedule by staff, and then you got book it. It's in gray right now, just in case you don't have it turned on. So it says there, book referral directly into providers, optimize schedule. Contact us to turn it on. Once it's turned on, then if I click on schedule Carla Lee and I'll click on book it, then it would automatically pull up the opportunity through API to pull in that provider's calendar of the time slots that they can that they're available. So at that point, all I got to do is click on, in this example, 2 p.m. and now I have booked that appointment in the most revenue optimized. How do we get this ball rolling? Is we do an optimization assessment so that you can see what the predicted revenue would be if you have. Now we've handled the first two. Referral selection, we handled that. How to fix that. How to fix your appointment scheduling. The third part is how to fix referral management. Okay, so we don't have time to go into deep detail on that. Okay, so I'm just going to do just a quick overview, and when we actually get on the call together, we'll walk through that together. We'll actually do a demo of how to do that. But the first thing you have to have are integrated provider staff tools. So, for example, we need to have team chat. You need to have two-way text. You need to have be able to do televisits if you need it. You need a CRM to track the referral order all the way from a referral order all the way through closing the loop. And so we have that, and we'll show that to you in whenever we have our next meeting. And you can reduce your admin time over 50% by using these tools. And then the next step for referral management, you have to have automation. And it needs to be both in English and Spanish. We started with English, and Dr. McCarrick, you were one of them. Y'all said, hey, do y'all have this in Spanish too? And so we did. We added Spanish for text, emails, calls, to create a higher contact rate and to reduce the no-shows and to be able to share the data with the providers to close that loop regardless of the EHR. So as you see here, within the platform, you have new, then they move to in review, then they're moved to scheduled, and then did they pass if it's past the date of the appointment, did they show or not show, and then whether or not we've closed the loop with the patient and recipient. And we have the automation, and her name is Sarah, or in Dr. McCarrick's case, they named her Vicky. And so the automation saves you time, close to your home, provides best patient experience, date and time. But at the bottom, you'll see to ensure that you get the care you need. So now they know why they're getting a friendly reminder. Now they know why that we are asking if you actually met with a specialist and ask them to rate their experience. And I'll actually show you the brochure that we worked with Dr. McCarrick that they hand out at the time of care. But that overall helps reduce the no-shows and increase the closed loop. And speaking of closed loop, the big one, Dr. McCarrick, that we talked about is being able to measure. Be able to measure the entire process. And I don't want to go into this whole graph here, but just see that in the background, we've mapped out the technology and the workflow of a referral coordinator that we will work with you on of exactly what the steps are and how we're going to measure every step of the referral process. For example, at that point, that's when we choose the ideal match. And from there, we can check out the technology and the workflow of a referral coordinator that we will work with you on of exactly what the steps are and how we're going to measure every step of the referral process. For example, at that point, that's when we choose the ideal match. And from there, we can track the leakage and have the reports on PCP, facility, every report you can think of on leakage. And then to have the visibility on every step of the referral. You can track that for your whole organization, for each of your provider group, compare PCPs and specialist performance. Like in this example, you can see every step. Here's a cardiologist, for example, and Jonas Garcia has a better overall score in how they're doing in each one of these compared to Carlos. And you'd be able to have those conversations with Carlos and say, hey, here's what we've seen of other providers. Let's figure out where we can help you. And now you're making overall process improvement within your organization. Continuously plan, deploy, improve, and measure every step in your goals per quarter. And then that leads us to, what results have we had from our technology? How much have we been processing through here? Between us and our parent company, we've had 30 million lives that we've been managing, 8 billion clinical elements, 3 billion process claims, 133, just $1 billion in savings. So the validation is there, but there's nothing better of hitting validation than hearing from somebody else that's actually using it. So here we are with Dr. McCarrick. He has his after story. So we're going to move to you being able to share your outcomes.
Sure. So you can see them up here. Robert's put them up here. We have 10 offices. 8 have been trained so far. Actually, there's a training going on right as I speak. An online training for the supervisors at each office. We started the process. I guess it's almost a year ago that we started this process, and it took us a little while in the beginning to understand it. But I guess in retrospect, what I've come to understand is that it's really, and Robert's going to cringe when I say this maybe, but it's about 10% of the whole thing is really about the technology itself. I mean, you really want to have good technology, but there's another 30% that is about how you change your workflows to make it work with the technology. But then 60% is about the people. You need to get the people engaged. It's the medical assistants, it's the providers. But I think that's really the mix. You can have a great application, but you have to build the other components, the workflows. That's actually sometimes the biggest struggle. I think the application has great bones. What Robert demonstrated was really a very robust application that potentially has a lot of complexity. But I mean, from what we've seen so far, you don't need to actually use all that complexity to get benefit. I think that if you get the core benefit from getting the application set up and running, you continue to build as you become more sophisticated and you add other elements into the application. So I think if you thought you had to run through this whole thing and get scheduling set up and all this data, I think that would be a long path to seeing success in ROI. But I think even with the first steps, we were actually start moving down the path. I think patients have been engaged with this. It's very cool for the patients to get a text on their phone that is really very nicely done, has nice messaging, and is interacting them with them in a way that we are showing that we're paying attention, but we're not being intrusive. And it also helps us intercept problems. Many of the referrals fall through the cracks because we refer to somebody, this is pre-referral point, who was on vacation or not accessible. Now we can start to get the feedback more quickly and patch those referrals together. We do a lot of marketing up front because we hadn't done this. We waited for patients to have referrals. Now we're trying to get in front of it. In our market, about half of the patients are self-referring. So we lose the ability to actually influence those. So part of our marketing is not just the marketing we do at the point we make the referral, but at the time we do physicals and throughout our offices, we're constantly reinforcing with patients that we are the best person to come to when you need a referral, not to your neighbor, that we are the best person to come to when you need a referral, not to your neighbor or the person who walks your dog, which unfortunately are sometimes the referral sources that we see patients using. So we're trying to just create a new culture where we can show that we have the combination of data and the technology and all the different components that would really make sure that the patient is getting the best referral possible in their network, high value specialist, access, we're staying in the loop. That takes a long time to do, but we started down that path very early on with that. And we've worked with the referral point team. I know we're a development partner, but they've been really, really good with working with on a frequent schedule. We meet with them at least once a week, or sometimes even more often, especially as we're getting things. We have lots of questions. Referral Point Lightbeam has been a good partner in helping us to move this along, and we've had, over the years, plenty of experience with software vendors who have had presented interesting applications, and then we found that the support was not there for it, and that's going to make the difference between whether the application is going to succeed or fall on its face. At this point, we have good uptake from the MA staff. It's really important to get their buy-in. Without them, this is not going to work. So part of it is about training them. Once you train them, and there are some steps you can take. The single sign-on, is going to, obviously that's going to save some steps. We have to get pre-authorization on probably 30 to 40% of our referrals. So like that. So if you can look for those steps that are actually slowing the medical assistants and receptionists down, and you can solve that in the course of developing and implementing the application, that's going to increase your buy-in. So today, as a result of all the work we've done to find those obstacles, now our ability to generate a referral is comparable, if not faster, than what we were doing previously, where they had to pull out a piece of paper, identify the specialist, take out a prescription slip, write the reason down. So we're doing what we were doing before, but we're doing it with much better control and much better utility, and a better marketing approach. So it's really an enhanced process as well as being as quick as what we were doing before. But we have more to go. We're not done with this. Much better utility, and a better marketing approach. So it's really an enhanced process as well as being as quick as what we were doing before. But we have more to go. We're not done with this. We have a committee of doctors who looks at the network. I mean, that's really, really important. Is how you build a network using the data plus other things. So we have a committee of doctors who's working on that. So this is going to be an ongoing solution. We didn't just solve this and now we're moving on to the next thing. This is going to be a continued project for us for the next year or two at least.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. McCarrick. It has been an honor working with you, and as far as helping, one thing you want to do is make sure you're helping others have go through the same process you've been through, and we talked about what the next step was, and so we said, why don't we just take them through the next step is whether or not you turn on our referral module, we will still invest in delivering this blueprint to you. And so in order to do that, the next step is to complete the referral impact survey. So, John, do you want to throw that on the screen real quick?
Yep, actually just threw it on. You should see a pop-in box that says take survey now with a picture. So that should be appearing right in front of you.
Okay, awesome. So what questions have we gotten from people along the way here?
Yeah, so this first question is for Dr. McCarrick. And this has to do with you, when you were going through the outcomes that Vanguard has experienced. It says, does the solution save staff time, and was the staff open to this new way of handling referrals? I know you touched on it quite a bit, but I wanted to make sure the question was
right. Well, in the beginning, there was a lot of resistance in the beginning. I think the first thing is resistance to change. Everyone has a familiar way of doing something, so when when you introduce something that's really pretty significantly different, there's just resistance just on that basis alone. But over time, as I said, as we showed our staff that actually this was quicker, more efficient, I think we started to get their buy-in. And at this point, staff are very comfortable doing it. They feel it's very quick. They don't have to go searching for a piece of paper. They don't have to write something out.
Yep. So this next is, what, if any, has the rapid increase in televisits had on the referral process or the referral point solution?
Well, actually, referral point is actually really an ideal solution for telehealth. Because if you think about it, when we were generating these referrals on paper, that meant you had to be face to face, or now you're going to have to put something in the mail. So if I have a patient, I do a video visit, and I want to refer the patient, I tell my staff to generate that referral. They'll do that electronically. The patient gets all the information on their phone. They get a text. The folks that I've recommended the contact information. For telehealth, it's way more efficient than a face-to-face visit. So I think it's actually ideally suited. So that was good timing, Robert.
Good. Thank you.
Suited. So that was good timing, Robert.
Good. Thank you.
Great. So next one here is, many of the specialists we refer to are not on the same EHR or practice management system. So how would this work?
Oh, yeah. So that makes it even more challenging to know how to close loop with the referrals because they're not on the same EHR. So you have to have multiple ways to send that referral to them. And so that's why we had Plan A, Plan B, Plan C. Some of the other referral platforms that are out there, the only way someone can receive a referral is if they log into the same system. Well, that's great, but not every specialist is going to go log into the same platform if they're into some separate software. So if they're not on the same EHR, how are you going to get them the referral? Well, you can fax it to them. And that's one way, which you can fax right out of our platform. You just say, here's the referral, boom, hit the button, and it faxes the paperwork to them for the referral. But what's Plan B? Well, you have direct message, going into the direct message. And then if Plan C, if you are really serious about closing the loop, we have a call center that can do it if you don't have one. So it's creating a centralized referral desk to do that for you. So we wanted to make sure we cover any scenario that we have our bases covered on.
So next question is, earlier in the presentation, you mentioned losing downstream revenue. Can you explain what you mean by downstream?
Yeah, for example, a very successful ACO. We were talking to the lady who runs that, and she made the comment, well, the cost is the same for all of her Medicare providers. If she sends a patient over there, they do a procedure, the cost is going to be the same. So how do I lower my cost? But it wasn't until after we talked for a while that she was like, whoa, okay, yes, that makes. If she refers over to a specialist, well, that specialist, his costs aren't the same. Maybe for that one procedure, John, they would be the same. For a knee replacement, for just that little procedure, not little, but that procedure, the cost might be the same. But all the tests that may be done, maybe the number of tests, maybe who they refer to after that would be different. And maybe the imaging is the imaging that they use, or the prescriptions that they use, or the length of stay that they're there. You add up all those things, that's not the same. So you have to think of it more of an episode of cost. If I refer to this person, what is my overall cost? What facilities are they going to refer to from there? Those things you have to bring into this overall solution to know how you can drastically lower your cost, even for an ACO type scenario. If it's a fee for service or a health system out of network, and they're not on the same EHR, the downstream loss of that, that's a little bit easier to understand, because if I refer it out of my network and that patient is doing business, but they're not doing business with us, well, that's an easy one to understand, but the other one was more difficult. So
next question is, how do you determine which specialists are part of the ranking system, and how do you get their data?
So there's different ways to get the data. And so like Dr. McCarrick's situation, we had his claims. And so that we can create some cost scores out of his claims, or if you gave us your claims and we ingest those, we can create cost scores. But that's only on Medicare. Most likely you're sending us your Medicare, and we process that. But what about all the commercial data? How do we really fully create a ranking? Because you're not just doing Medicare referrals. You may be doing all kinds of referrals, and you want to say who really is the lowest cost for Medicare and who is the lowest cost if I send them for commercial. And having access to that data, we created partnerships with data companies, and we've been working with them for the last year to get it to the point where it's defendable cost and quality data that we can sit with a CMO and they can go, yep. And that's been an amazing journey. That's how we utilize that data to create the ranking scores.
And Dr. McCarrick, were you gonna speak to this one as well?
No, I think that was that was really the idea. We're starting with subjective, and then as you have more and more data, larger volume of data, so you can feel it's reliable, both between whatever you can bring to the application yourself, plus whatever Lightbeam actually outsources in the market. As you get that larger pool of data, you start to have more confidence. Then you pull these two together, and then that helps you create your ranking system. And that's why you need to pay attention to it and develop it. It's not something you just flip a switch on.
Yeah, I think we have time for probably one more. We already send referrals through our EHR, but we were interested in using the data to rank providers. How would that fit within our existing solution?
Yeah, that's a really great point, and we talked about it earlier about you got referral selection, and then you got appointment and referral management. And if you're comfortable using your EHR for your normal referral, where you schedule your appointment and then you do your follow-ups to close the loop, and you want to use your EHR just to process a referral, but you don't have a way to do referral selection within a 5 to 10 second period of time to get back to your normal EHR, then you could just use our ideal match. You get referral selection, you get intelligent data, you get the network builder and ideal match to do the referral selection at the time of care. It pops up. Here's my 5 to 10 seconds to make it pops up. Here's my 5 to 10 seconds to make sure I got the right provider and go right back into my normal process of using my EHR. You can do that. And so some of our clients actually do it that way.
So any final thoughts, Dr.?
Well, just coming back to what I said earlier, just expect that the application has a lot of capabilities. We just heard at the very end of the conversation today a bunch of questions around using different components of it. I think you can get value anywhere along the continuum of what the application can offer. Again, it's going to be about the application, but it's going to be about your workflows to a greater extent, and mostly about getting all the people on board. So those are the key things, I think.
Yes, and just to end with Dr. McCarrick, you said that what you like most about Referral Point is to be able to control your referrals. And if there's anything that anybody gets out of this conversation, I would say that has been across the board the number one reason why our clients love us is because they finally can actually control the referrals. They before had ways to manage referrals, but now they're able to control the cost and the quality that they didn't have an opportunity before.
That's the reason to be for this application is that if you're in value-based care, you need to control your referrals, and so that's something that we can do now, 100 times better than we were doing.
Okay, so John, again, so the next step is to take the survey, and that will get the ball rolling. Any questions they have will get answered. We'll follow up with you, answer those questions. And John, are you sending them something after this webinar?
Yep. So like I said, everybody will get an email following this. They'll get a recording of the presentation. They'll also get another link to to take their survey, take the next step, and then if there are any questions, we'll have personal follow-ups to make sure those are taken care of as well.
And has helped us in a great deal of developing this in a way that we can actually help other clients and help others like who are on this call. So thank you so much for your help.
You're very welcome.
All right. Well, hope everyone has a great day, and we'll look forward to talking with you soon. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, John.
Take care.
Bye-bye.